Wet weather here in the Italian countryside for week 4 of the North American Sim Racing Series Season 23. It is refresh night, it's randomizer night. The weather is unpredictable, but the track conditions are intense, and we can forecast for you an intense night of GT3 racing here at Monza. Welcoming you in. Happy Tuesday. It's Jackson Lambros, joined as always by Elliot Brown, as we're watching Michael Quant hustle his way around here in the 12-ounce racing Mustang. Elliot, I mean, we've looked forward to a lot of events this weekend. I think this one really stands out on the schedule, though, as something that could be really special. Let's bring in someone else you don't usually hear from frequently. He's doing double duty for us tonight. He's a steward joining Greg Kachadurian in the race control booth. It's Oppo Ruotsalainen. Oppo, I know we kind of chose a poor race here for you to do double duty, as Monza always kind of tends to bring some drama here. But what stands out for you this week? And again, that's going to add on to the chaos of this race. Constantly changing conditions. We're not going to know what's coming until about, say, 15 minutes in advance. So strategies are going to be changing. Driving styles are going to have to adapt on the fly, or how you at least approach different corners. Now, granted, when you have 23 of these cars running at the same time, it tends to dry out pretty quickly. But again, depending on how much it rains, it can go very quickly. We're going to step away really quickly, get things sorted out here. Watch Michael Landry go at pace here. Apologies here as we're trying to sort out audio issues halfway through qualifying right now. Somehow, some way, Arjun Lakshmi Narasimhan out in front right now in that Mercedes AMG, followed by Michael Landry and Jorge Blasini Rivera. It's Jackson Lambros, Ilpo Ruotsalainen, and Elliott Brown in the comms box with you. We're going to try this one more time here as we go ahead and ride with Michael Landry. And again, let us know in chat if there are still any audio issues, but we're doing everything we can to balance it out. Josh Popov just went back to the pits after trying to get himself deeper into the top 10. Elliott, we missed it a little bit in the start there, but the two Gabagool Racing guys had a little bit of drama at the start at the Nürburgring. Obviously that there is going to be, you got to talk about turn one when you talk about Monza, Ilpo, and I think the big concern for me is what is the percentage chances of us having some kind of incident here? I know these guys work really closely with one another to prevent incidents like that happening, but it could be slicker than we thought initially. Things could be constantly changing. How do you measure things going down here in turn one? Apologies here for audio issues as we ride on board with Michael Landry, trying to sort out what these issues could possibly be. Elliott, say hi to chat.
Yeah, hi folks in the chat. If you can hear me, let me know.
We got it. I think we got it.
Beautiful work, Jackson. I was gonna narrate something for a little bit. That way, hopefully, when they could hear me, they started talking. Then let us know. So I'm really glad that we worked this out. We should go back and find a lap from somebody so that Ilpo can give us a good walkthrough of what's going on in these racers' heads as they're trying to finish this qualifying up.
Looking right now, see if we got anybody going on. I'll tell you what, Brian Crane's on a flyer right now. Ilpo, give us a lap.
Okay, let's see.
It's all right, we kind of put you on the spot.
We really put you on the spot.
Where is the... Okay. So... Coming up to the second chicane, it is very important to hit the first apex, very good, and full throttle through the second apex preferable. Right now the track is still damp, so they can't actually run the curbs fully. You want a slightly early turn in for Lesmo 1. In Lesmo 2 it's very important to not hit the inside curb too much. It tends to unsettle the car very badly and you either spin out or lose traction and have to manage the car on the exit. Now we're coming up to Ascari, the most important sequence of corners on the track, especially the final one. By a large margin, the lap is either made or lost here. That's a pretty good cut. probably could cut even more. Some cars can go fully over the left side curve there, but it can also be very dangerous because if you get it even slightly wrong, you are very likely to have a very large accident. Now into Parabolica, exit here is crucial. You have to not get on throttle too early. If you get on throttle too early, you're gonna have to lift when the car pushes wide, and you're gonna lose a lot of time. We take a light cut on the inside there to shorten the track because there's a long straight and there's nothing to do. And now going into turn 1, you want to brake as late as possible, but not too late, because if you miss the first apex, your exit is gonna be terrible.
Showing you even
A little bit.
that pretty much gets us to where you picked up there, Elfo, so thank you. I think Ascari is what really stands out to me because the amount of time I was able to make up there with how much curb you can run in that kind of final big technical part of the corner, or part of the course, you can gain a lot of time. It can also absolutely destroy your lap because it can spit you out so quick. And as you mentioned, I think it's very, very car specific. The BMWs are very, very comfortable around there. We've seen them be very comfortable around there. But, I mean, mid-engine cars, especially the Ferrari, we've seen struggle when it comes to curbs in general, and that's the mother of all curbs here at Monza.
That is true, but also they have the advantage of being able to turn a little bit better while on throttle, which makes it less necessary to cut over the curb. You still do want to do it if you're really, really, really trying for that final piece of lap time, but you can get a reasonably good result cutting just a little bit less in a mid-engine car.
Well, some of the cars that are already flexing their American muscle here should be kind of a surprise to nobody here. It's the Mustang, Zach Martin, Grayson Head making it a blue oval 1-2. Provisionally, Dave Pacagnini for Gabagool Racing instantly splits that, though. Haven't seen a lot of Nissans make that another one. We're finally starting to see what these dry lap conditions are doing for these cars, so a shuffle in the order is due. But the Gabagool Racing duo of Popov and Pacagnini come through. Now Adriel Lugo Ortiz jumps into second. Nobody unable to get Martin yet, though, Elliot.
Yeah, it's absolutely... This is going to be a time where if you didn't get a good lap in, even if you did get a good lap in, you're going to have to come back out because the track started wet, and we're going to see a lot of hustling to get out of the pit lane and get into the action. As we watch these cars, especially these cars that are known for having high speed down the straightaways, they're absolutely pushing those cars to the maximum speed that they can get out of them before they get to T1 or the second chicane or Ascari or Parabolica, right? I mean, this is a track, and Ilpo, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a track of getting an absolutely perfect exit and keeping an absolutely clean straight line speed up into those braking zones.
Yes. Every corner exit is of the most vital importance because the straights are so long, so the tiniest mistake on a corner exit is going to cost you significant amounts of time. It makes the track very frustrating because the lap is relatively long, but there are very few corners where you have to actually be perfect.
Yeah, it was something I was talking to Davin about because I was feeling a little frustrated this week practicing here because for me it's hard to find a rhythm, and maybe some of these drivers and yourself have a better technique for doing so, but for me it was hard to find a rhythm to get a clean entry, a clean mid-corner, and a clean exit to carry that much speed down the straightaways. I was always feeling, you know, like I had just sent so much speed into the garbage can as I did my exits of especially Parabolica and Ascari. I think those were my two worst places. So I'm going to be really interested to keep an eye on some of these folks driving through those corners, especially to see how well they take those exits.
Back and forth we go here in the top 5. Zach Martin has built on his time, but Adriel Lugo Ortiz, as I say that, leapfrogs him for the lead. Zach Martin with a big improvement as well, trying to work his way back up front. Zach Leclerc now up into second. This is one of the most intense qualifying sessions we've seen all season long. JBR, Zach Leclerc, Richie Wood up front. Everybody looking to get their way into the top 5 now. Zach Martin almost a second and a half up from his last time. Comes to the line. Good for second best. Unable to top Michael Landry with just 600ths separating the front row.
Yeah, it's interesting to me to see how far back third place is right now. I think there's a lot of folks still on flyer laps, and there's going to be a few more folks cross that checkered that start line just before the session ends. So we're still looking at quite a bit of a shakeup as Mikhail Charles takes third place away from Grayson, and Casey Jackman does the same.
McLaren, Ford, then a pair of BMWs provisionally are front row. But you look at Landry and Martin, both of these guys have set steaming laps, but they're already looking negative on their delta. They've got more in the tank here with the checkered flag coming out in just 10 seconds. This is going to be their last chance for everybody to get in dry laps here. What does the rest of the field have? What does Landry and Zach Martin have in these conditions? Checkered flag is out. The rest, your provisional front row here is working their way onto Ascari. About 10 car laps separating those two. Both are around a quarter of a second advance from their previous lap times. Dave Pacagnini gets himself up to third. He's first to the line. Arjun Lakshminarasimhan also is able to improve. He now stands on the pole provisionally.
Yeah, looking at these times, you can tell it was a wet track and it's drying. I mean, I expect Landry in a dry race to put in 2 seconds better than what he's done so far. So it's certainly shaken the grid up in a way that we were kind of hoping to see, I think. You know, the weather creates that opportunity for those grid shakeups in those cars to have to work a little bit harder and folks to have to plan a little better. And this is going to be a race of planning. I think this is going to come down entirely to what's your pit stop strategy and how well can you manage tires in changing conditions.
At the buzzer, Zach Martin with an absolute nuclear lap gets his Proton Mustang to the front of the field. Just 7 hundredths ahead of Michael Quant. Michael Landry now working his way up to the front of the field. It is very, very big muscles being flexed right now from the Quants. We were thinking Michael in the Mustang was looking fast, but Matt Quant turns it up in his McLaren to work his way to the front row. And in one of the most intense qualifying sessions we've had all season long, it is Zach Martin who stands on the pole and will lead us to green for the first time this season. We'll step away here. We'll be back in about 5 minutes to get round 3 underway. And we are clear. Sorry about that. I wasn't clear, chat. I love you guys. My bad. Actually, while I can just talk to chat while you guys are on the standby screen, I'm sorry for the audio. We're working on it. I'm constantly improving. Of course, the internet is also deciding to not go with me right now. I'm doing everything in here, chat. I'm doing everything I can. I gotta do like 9 different things at once. I'm a Swiss Army man tonight, okay? And I'll see you in 5 minutes. Love you. Back here for round 4 of the North American Sim Racing Series from Monza. Working your way through the starting grid here. Starting back in 23rd is Brian Crane. 22nd is Carter Hain. Keith Bull, 21st. Jesse Beclaire, 20th. Shelby Hoog is 19th. Josh Popov, 18th. Richie Wood, 17th. Amos Movo is 16th. Zach Beclaire, 15th. Ty Switt is 14th. Brian Slater will be starting in 13th. Then it's Davin Sturdivant next to David Pacagnini in 11th. Elliot?
We have Mikhail Charles alongside Jorge Blasini Rivera in a pair of BMWs in 10th and 9th. Casey Jackman, 8th. Mustang in 7th. Edriel Lugo Ortiz, 6th. Grayson Head in 5th. Michael Landry alongside Arjun Lakshmi Narasimhan in 4th and 3rd, respectively.
Nailed the name to a T there. There we go. On the front row, Matt Quant gets his best career NASRS start. He's in second. He'll be starting alongside a guy we're used to starting up front, but in new colors. It's Zach Martin. So let's talk strategy here, gentlemen, because I'd normally turn it to Elliot with a good prediction. It's hard to tell what we would like here with how unpredictable the weather would be. We know a stop is going to be mandatory, but I'll throw this to both of you, gentlemen. Should we have the weather be crazy enough, could a second stop potentially be warranted?
I mean, it is possible, but if I was in the race, I would take more than half fuel, like almost all the way to the end, just to make sure I don't need to do that.
Right.
Because the cost of doing an extra stop is just horrible.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with Ilpo on this one. If it's me, I'm trying to avoid that stop. I mean, through the week while we were driving, I was practicing using slicks in the wet just because when it comes to our race on Thursday, I don't know that I want to be making that extra stop. It's what, Ilpo, correct me, 40-some seconds here for a full pit stop?
Well, the pit lane typically is like about 25 seconds plus minus a few, and it's 30 seconds to get tires. So we are looking at almost a minute if you need to do an extra pit stop for tires. Now, you might have the option if you see the rain's coming but you don't have enough fuel, you could maybe do like a short stop just to get fuel. Oh, that will still cost you way too much time. So you need to kind of either you roll the dice or you're gonna play it safe and take so much fuel that you can get almost all the way to the end.
Top right of your screen is going to be extra important tonight. Your track conditions to the right of your weather, what we're going to see in the next few minutes. Guys, we've had 3 different winners so far. It was Jacob Palmieri in race 1. Race 2 was, of course, Mikhail Charles. Michael Landry, and then 3 was, of course, Charles. Are we going to see a different winner this time by? The conditions are going to be incredibly random. We've got a very unexpected front row here, which is something we always love to see. The chaos is almost inevitable. So let's get the party started. It's Zach Martin and Matt Kwan on the front row to get us started, and we're gonna drop the hammer and get things going here for round 4 at Monza. Good jump from Arjun Lakshmi Narasimhan. Michael Landry with a little bit of momentum, neither of them with a real estate to get it going. 3 wide further back, Blasini Rivera, one of the Mustangs, and Charles. They'll back up. Martin with the lunge a little bit. One car goes off further back. It's one of the Mercedes as well as Jackman. They nudge Sturdivant, and a couple cars go around further back.
Ooh.
Michael Quant gets turned around. Zach Martin gets the lead, and heartbreak right off of the bang, right from the start for Quant in the McLaren. It is Zach Martin who continues to lead, but gets a drive-through penalty for speeding at the start of the race. I believe that's been cleared since. Arjun Lakshmi Narasimhan is second, but heartbreak here at the start for many drivers at the front of the field.
Yeah, that was a really messy one.
Just to note on those drive-thrus, our standard process is to clear them and go and investigate whether an advantage was gained, because the game can be a little bit weird about those sometimes.
Ilpo, I want you to go and check and see if that was guaranteed for a jumped start potentially, or speeding on the start. It's what caught 2 guys out last time by. So already we could potentially have our 2 front runners out of the race like that. And if so, that's going to give the lead right back to Arjun Lakshmi Narasimhan. Had a class win in silver at Suzuka last year. That's when he was still using a controller. He's got the force feedback wheel now that he's moved back to Phoenix. Just graduated from University of Colorado in Boulder. So he's able to be at his full potential, as he said. But he mentioned even then, I don't know how much you used other hardware, Ilpo, but that's not always the biggest, the easiest mental shift, going from one kind of wheel or hardware to another.
Yeah, it can be quite difficult, especially if you're, because there are certain things that are actually easier on a controller, but then overall, very different experience.
So Matt Quant from second falls back into seventh. That's let the other Quant, Michael in the Mustang here, work his way up to fifth. Michael Landry on the move there, tried to get away around the Mustang. No dice so far through the first corner. But up front, it is all Zach Martin right now. I don't have the replay camera available right now, but Elliot, what's it look like happened?
Oh, it's very clear at the start there. One of the cars in the back. Let me see if I can grab this car number. It's a BMW. He runs a little close to Davin, brakes a little earlier than he should have, hits Sturdivant in the side, which sends him into the back half of the field and just absolutely creates a chaotic. I mean, this was just a mess all around, and it's put Sturdivant nearly in last place at this point. And I was looking because I saw him so far back, and I thought, that's Ristic. He doesn't usually get wiped out at the start of the race like that, but it just, yeah.
Three-car freight train to get us started here outside of the top five. Expected some fangs out driving early on here, and we are getting it. Michael Quant, Michael Landry, both of the Quant brothers, Matt and Michael, sandwiching right now. Quant under fire right now. Landry trying to make it work around the outside in the McLaren, carrying all that momentum to the outside, asking for as much grip as possible from the Pirellis. He's asking a little bit too much, because Quant is able to get back on the inside from the Ford Mustang and resume that battle. Not out of the woods yet, though. Landry tucks right back into the slipstream. Will it be enough? Will we see a move into the chicane? Looks to the outside. Quant goes to the inside. Landry with a little bit of slipstream from the Mustang in front. Here come the Acres. Side by side. Ooh, maybe made a little bit of contact there from Grayson Head. Yes, he did. He'll have to cut the chicane, guys.
Yeah, that turn one braking zone, I mean, that's going to catch a lot of people out if they're not paying attention, and that's where we talked about it in the beginning. You know, Ilpo mentioned that when they're stewarding, they look at all aspects of the incident, and that turn one, it's very much one of those situations where you have to be on the absolute best of your behavior to make sure it works for everybody involved.
Drama once again for Josh Popov in that Gabagool Racing Lamborghini. He's lost a couple positions from the start. He's about to lose another as Zach LeClaire chucks it up the inside. That's Richard Wood behind Brian Slater and others. A freight train outside of the top 15. A rough start for him. Further back, you've got another group of guys who have been running really well this season. You know, Carter Hayne, Casey Jackman, Davin Sturdivant, all of them were caught up in this starting incident right now and trying to charge forward, but you've just got to be so patient when it comes to these sorts of incidents.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at our grid lineup right now, and the biggest winner so far has been Brian Crane, up 9 positions from his starting position in 22nd, and the biggest loser, unfortunately, so far has been Casey Jackman, who started in 8th and is now down in 19th. I mean, this is a big mix-up. I only see 3 drivers who are in the same position they started the race in.
Mustang battle continues here. One is actually moved forward. He's looking on the inside of Grayson Head now. Mustang, wheel to wheel across the stripe. A little bit of momentum, but the side draft from Head goes back his way as he's looking for a way around. Watch Mikhail Charles further back on the other Quant. Can't get it done, but still side by side into the chicane go the 2 Mustangs. Quant goes through. That's going to give Landry maybe a chance. Still side by side on the exit. Some nuclear moves here, as Quant, originally under major fire from Michael Landry, has seized the opportunity and has moved forward.
with the race pace of some of these drivers, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Landry pick one or two of them off. He was absolutely flying, and if we get any sort of track conditions that aren't optimal... Oh, and that's a big hit.
Mikhail Charles goes around. He tried chucking it up the inside of Matt Quant and got absolutely pit maneuvered. Ty Swin involved in another incident of his own. And we talked about this earlier, guys. Mikhail Charles, a big championship favorite right now this weekend, has one drop round and has not faltered at all this season. Has been on the podium almost the entire season. And that's a major hit right there. Ilpo, I'm not sure if you saw the incident, but that could be potentially a very big penalty coming his way.
I didn't see the original incident, but I did see that there might have been an unsafe rejoin by Mikael there. So if that is the case, he's going to get a very large penalty because we take those very seriously.
Battle for the lead already underway here. A handful of Mercedes up against Zach Martin, Arjun Lakshmi Narasimhan. He's right in the draft of this Ford Mustang. Both of these guys, plenty of horsepower under the hood, but what can Arjun do to get around? He'll try to make the long way stick here going into the hairpin. Some great defense to the middle from Zach Martin makes that Mustang as wide as possible. Position stays now. What you got, Elliot?
I'm seeing stewards confirm a 10-second penalty on Landry for that turn one incident on Matt Quant. So that'll certainly put a damper on Landry's expectations for the rest of the race. Or Michael Quant.
Oh my gosh. So Michael Landry was involved in that incident as well. Ooh, trouble for Zach Leclerc also as he slowly rejoins. Popov got caught off earlier, now Zach Leclerc. Elliot?
And on the rejoin topic, it's something that Ilpo mentions a lot, and I think it's incredibly important that we mention it, that when you're rejoining this track, you have to be absolutely cognizant of all the drivers around you, because, I mean, we saw that spin with Charles where he went off track, but not entirely, and it's questionable as to whether that could, be considered valid or not, because another driver was impacted by the fact that he wasn't entirely in a safe position.
Into Ascari, Zach Martin going for the middle of the racetrack right now, giving Arjun and Lugo Ortiz some commitment issues here. Do I go high? Do I go low? Either way, it's going to take a lot of commitment, a lot of energy for me to make this car stick. It washed Arjun up. That might give Edriel an opportunity to pounce here. Coming out of Parabolica, nothing quite yet. But further back, Charles on the move right now, trying to work his way past Josh Popov after he got doored by Landry, or one of the other McLarens, excuse me. So he is absolutely on the charge forward right now.
Yeah, Charles is going to put as much power into that car as he can. He's been talking since the season started about how safe the BMW feels and how he kind of hates it, but he also loves it.
Oh, trouble!
And we've been... Ooh.
Might have gotten involved with Josh Popov, who's also parked broadside here. And a bad day gone worse for Mikhail Charles and Josh Popov. Oh boy, both of these two down to 19th and 20th. We've got more drama than a middle school lunch table here with just 10 minutes in at Monza as this three-way battle for the lead continues. Apologies for the server issues here. It kind of looks like the cars are ice skating right now, the way the server is giving us this telemetry. But these guys are not going sideways right now. Let's throw it over to Elpo right now, because I know we've seen some not great driving so far, not great racemanship between these guys, but your thoughts on the driving standards so far?
Well, to me it feels like some people are trying very hard. And it is understandable people are out of position, but part of why racing is so hard is that even when the blood is boiling and you really want to get by this guy and he's like a second per lap slower, you still have to make sure you do it cleanly, and obviously also the defense has to be clean. You can't break the rules when you are defending. So and this track makes it very hard, because the only reasonable overtake opportunities tend to be trying to outbrake someone into one of these very hard braking zones, and that's always quite dangerous.
Arjun with a good run once again here. Unable to get it past Zach Martin. More trouble further back. Casey Jackman in the wall. Big trouble for him. Carter Hayne also got involved. I believe Zach Beclaire collected as a result as well. And it is a handful of very disappointing results for Casey Jackman, the man who had such a strong start to the season. Had heartbreak after a tangle with Brian Slater at Bathurst. And once again, gets towed to the pit lane here at Monza.
I really have to feel for our stewards today. They're going to be putting in a lot of overtime trying to keep up with everything that's been going on. So we do want to send our thanks out to the rooting team, Ilpo, Greg, Ryan, all the folks that put in a lot of effort and volunteer to help keep this racing as efficient as it can be and as legal as it can be.
I've had it described to me once as a waiter kind of trying to bust different tables at a super crowded restaurant, especially in very eventful races like this. Michael Landry further back there with a big excursion at the exit of Ascari. He continues but loses that position to Grayson Head. Further back, Adriel Lugo Ortiz was looking like he had the momentum to get past Arjun. Wasn't able to get it quite done, but he's tucked right into that rear bumper of the fellow Mercedes. This is a three-way battle that has just kept going on, gentlemen. Adriel right to the bumper now. We might see a move. Looks to the outside across the stripe. Might try the over-under. Let's see. Wasn't able to get anything done there. But the battles continue. Back over to Michael Landry in fifth. Or excuse me, in sixth, trying to get back past fifth. Had a little bit of an incident on the exit of Ascari last turn, or last lap, and dropped that position to the Mustang. And these guys have kind of separated themselves. How about Matt Kwan or Michael Kwan in the Mustang here? Brother suffered a little bit of an issue earlier, but managed to keep going. He's dropped back even further now. Here he is in eighth. Again, just like his brother, kind of in no man's land right now, which is great for some drivers. We talked about this a little bit at the Nürburgring, Elliott. A struggle if running in no man's land. Great sometimes if you're able to get your head down. A struggle if you kind of need to react off of other people.
Yeah, it's sometimes a blessing, sometimes a curse. I feel like more often it's a blessing, only because when you are off on your own and you have the opportunity to put some clean air in and get some really fast times in, it gives you that opportunity to build those gaps and close the gaps if you're behind. But when you're in a situation like Arjun's right now or Adriel's right now, you kind of start thinking, you're looking at the weather, you're evaluating your tires, your fuel, you're kind of thinking race strategy wise, should I pit? And Ilpo mentioned we've got nearly a minute of a delay for a pit stop. So if these guys pit right now, they're looking at going almost to the back of the grid, if not all the way to the back of the grid. And that gives them an opportunity to run in some clean air, close the gap up, maybe be behind somebody a little. Ooh, and Arjun goes side by side with Zach Martin through turn one and touches doors and makes it work. Is the position going to stick?
Carries that momentum to the end and makes it a done deal for the lead. Adriel Lugo Ortiz going to try to pounce on him now. Goes to the outside. So little grip there with the marbles on the outside, but is able to carry that momentum. And the Mercedes side by side switches the line and flips the script, but gets back in line. So Martin holds on and manages to minimize the damage, but Arjun Lakshmi Narasimhan leads for the first time here at Monza. A nuclear move into the first chicane.
Absolutely, and we saw Martin take a little bit too much curb in the second chicane, and that's going to hurt his speed here. And Ilpo mentioned the curbs here, and he mentioned how there's some of them you don't want to touch, and I think that's one of them.
Well, also the AMG is significantly better through the second chicane than almost any other car. It is one of the few cars that can actually ride the Gs there. But also that overtake almost happened on the previous lap as well. Arjun has been getting a better exit out from Parabolica. pretty much every lap, but he's always been too close. So he had to actually lift on the previous lap to avoid hitting Zach. And this time he judged the distance perfectly and was close enough but not too far to get that run on the main straight.
More drama for Michael Landry, as I believe he loses even more positions here. He was right on the back of this freight train with Grayson Head and Quant, but again keeps going wide in Ascari, so was unable to make that move done. Edriel Lugo Ortiz now with a run on Martin. Stays in line though, not able to make that happen. And the confidence you've got to have in the entrance of these chicanes. But Lugo Ortiz with a good exit. Oh my goodness, where is the power gone on these Ford Mustangs? They bang doors here going into the second chicane, but keep going. This is a almost carbon copy of what we saw last time. Wheel to wheel once again. Now Lugo Ortiz with the inside. Can he make it stick? A little bit of a back out from Martin, and I think he threw in the towel. So Edriel Lugo Ortiz gets it into second to make it a Mercedes 1-2.
I think Martin's thinking long-term race strategy here. He's not necessarily worried about these positions right now, because as things progress, as the race progresses, drivers have to predict the unpredictable weather. They have to predict the unpredictable changes in track condition. So if I'm him, I'm not necessarily worried. I'm not thrilled about it, but I'm not worried about it, as Arjun is absolutely gapping both of them from the battle they put on. And I have a confirmation from stewards that a 10-second penalty has been applied to Ty Swit, and this is for the turn 1 incident into Davin Sturdivant and a couple other vehicles. Stewards said that Ty did a good job trying to back out, but because of the impact to other folks' races, there has to be some sort of a penalty for that.
This is for 11th. Brian Slater looking up the inside of Richie Wood into Ascari, backs out of it, as that was in reaction to a little bit of an incident from Jesse Beclaire, who I think spun out, was on the racing line struggling to get that Porsche fired. You can see him there in that mint 911. Has managed to get it going, but was a scary moment as he was almost parked on the racing line there. That alone. Oh, but would that alone be enough to quantify a penalty?
Well, so I'm not sure we saw that on the stream, but there was an incident between Richie and the Porsche. And I'm not gonna backseat steward it, but it looked like a little bit of an opportunistic attempt at diving into a corner with no overlap. So we might see a penalty on Richie for that, but we'll see once the stewarding team gets to it how they feel about it.
Gotcha. Thank you, Elpo. Starting to mellow out here just a smidge. Still a couple of guys within snagging distance of positions, but Arjun got that open air in front of Zach Martin and has set sail a second and change over Edriel Lugo Ortiz, who definitely has the pace as well. He's the fastest man on track right now, almost 300ths quicker than the leader right now, Arjun. But Zach Martin continues
and this is
to crack under pressure. Yes, Elliot.
This is what I was mentioning before. When you get to that clean air, if you're not battling with somebody behind you, you got a lot of opportunity here to just make up a ton of pace and a ton of time. I mean, Arjun has put a 1.6 second gap on Edriel and a further second on Zach Martin simply by being out of the way and being able to send that car as fast as he wants. As I have seen another 10-second penalty for Davin Sturdivant in the number 4 Honda NSX for an issue into turn 4, and that's unfortunate. Davin got pushed down to 20th position on lap 1, and now he's going to serve a 10-second penalty at his next pit stop.
Very rarely do we see an incident from Davin. It would happen at a place like Monza. We're watching the battle for 5th right now. Grayson Head has once again gotten into a battle with Michael Landry, who had an incident but has recovered. That's Landry on the inside in that highlighter in blue McLaren 720, banging doors here into the second chicane. Big lunge on the brakes there to clear him and get himself into the top 5. Hard charge forward right now for Michael Landry.
Yeah, Landry was struggling out of the gate. I gotta wonder what's going on there. You were saying, Opal?
I was gonna say that type of side by side is so scary, because if you're the car on the outside line, you can theoretically brake later, assuming that the other guy is gonna brake at points where he leaves you the space. Because if you then brake later, you're gonna have the corner to yourself and you're gonna make it fine because you're on the racing line. But if the guy on the inside decides to also brake super late and try to win the race, the first apex, then both of you are gonna die.
Just ahead of
yeah,
you guys, by the way. Yeah, go on, Elliot.
I was going to say that's something that you've talked about before, Ilpo, when you guys talk about defining overlap and where those things happen, and it really speaks to the quality of thought you guys put into what do we look at when we talk about those incidents, because in that situation, if they both are not backing out and they collide, you've got big decisions that your team has to make.
Yes, so if that kind of thing happens, we would be looking at whether the car on the inside had any realistic chance of making the corner while leaving space for the car on the outside. So obviously you always have to leave the space, and usually the car on the inside has bigger responsibility because the car on the outside can only do so much while staying within the track limits. But also quite often in those scenarios we see like both drivers decide to brake super late. They both just cut the corner and they resume the fight from the same order they were in previously, if they are being reasonable about it.
Great insight here from our in-house steward, Ilpo Ruotsalainen. I know I'm still butchering that name, Ilpo, I'm sorry, but we're learning it on the fly. So Richie Wood right now trying to fend off Brian Slater, but further up the road, Matt Kwan and another McLaren are going at it right now. Michael Landry has finally turned up the jets. Granted, he does have that 10-second penalty, but even with that, he's driving like his life's on the line right now, which is not really anything different than what we've seen out of Michael Kwan.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Kwan is doing a banger of a job. Just make sure that he keeps clean as much as he can, and I think that's the big thing about Monza, is that survival can be a much bigger friend as to yourself and to your racing, as long as you pay attention to what the folks around you are doing. I mean, we've seen a couple penalties already, so if you're a person in a situation like Grayson Head where you're only a couple seconds behind Michael Landry, now you're just thinking, okay, good, this is a free position right now, seeing that, he gets hung up some other way or doesn't, I mean, if Grayson doesn't take a penalty, now he's almost got a guaranteed position out of this. So it's certainly going to be one of those situations where Michael Quant is thinking to himself, yeah, I'm just gonna kind of drive as fast as I can without doing anything inappropriate.
That's exactly what he's done right now. He decides to not get himself in too much trouble and gives that position to the other Michael Landry in that McLaren. So Quant stays in fifth. Still a top 5 drive, which is exactly what he would like right now after a 7th place start. Still moving forward. Was given a lot of great opportunities in that opening chicane with the drama of the front row. And Michael Landry, the 4-time NASRS Tuesday top split champion, continues to charge his way onto the podium.
Yeah, and I see a 15-second penalty for a car that it looks like has left us, so that will not be served, but another avoidable contact incident. It seems like that's going to be the story of today.
Mikhail Charles, Shelby Huff, a couple others have thrown in the towel, I believe. No penalties were served for Zach Leclerc, so he's continued going. His dad, Jesse, up into 14th right now. Originally 13th with the penalty that will be given to Davin Sturdivant. Did we get the reasoning behind that, gentlemen, the one for Davin?
It was an incident at turn 4. Originally, stewards noted it would have been a 15-second, but because Davin waited and did not try to take the position after the spin that he caused on car number 9 is what the report says. Again, another vehicle that's no longer in the server with us today. But effectively, they just had a collision. Car 4, which is Sturdivant, was indicated as having enough space to occupy without causing it, and so the steward said this was an avoidable contact, and they issued a 15-second penalty, less 5 for the waiting and the not necessarily pushing on forward at a extreme pace. And this is something that your team does a really good job at, I believe, Ilpo, where you have to factor in, or I shouldn't say have to, but you choose to factor in the intentions and the behavior of the drivers both before and after the incidents.
Yes, so whether you get the penalty or not depends on whether you broke the rule or not. How big of a penalty you get depends on somewhat on the consequences. So if it's just a door bang, you probably get nothing. If it's one position exchange, you'll get a small penalty. If you cause a mass pile up, you get a bigger penalty, because we feel like penalizing small incidents in a big way just because they happened is not really beneficial for good racing. And also, obviously, if you admit fault and you wait for the other guy, we reduce the penalty to take into account that you're admitting the fault. We want people to acknowledge their mistakes, because that's how we become better drivers.
Absolutely, and I think you guys do an absolutely fantastic job of making it clear what sorts of incidents will be penalized, how they'll be penalized, what the expectations of the drivers are. So I do want to commend the stewarding team that we have here.
Live stewarding and debriefing, one of the many cool things we have here at the North American Sim Racing Series across both our Tuesday top split and our rookie Thursday splits. Again, for any of you, for all 31 of you in chat right now, if you have not joined our community, we absolutely implore you to do so. Discord link can be given in chat, and give us a holler. We absolutely will. Fastest lap right now should be not a surprise to anybody. Michael Landry snatches that from Edriel Lugo Ortiz, currently 2/10 faster on track than anyone else right now. He's got Zach Martin in front of him, and those two have battled all throughout recent history here in NASRS. So just a matter of time before those two potentially get tangled again. We watched Landry pass Mike earlier on. Matt Quant behind is trying to get by Jorge Blasini Rivera in this red and blue BMW M4. This would be for the seventh spot, excuse me, if Quant can get this done. Again, started on the front row, had a little bit of drama. Still will absolutely be thrilled with a top 10 finish if he can make it happen. But I know he wants to work his way back forward.
We have a spanner being thrown into the works by the weather. Rain in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that, Ilpo. Walk us through strategy here, right? We're at the midpoint of the race, and in 15 minutes we have a little bit of rain coming. We don't know if there's any after that. We don't know, how heavy it'll be. But walk us through the mind of a fast driver here thinking about strategy.
Well, right now, if you're a fast driver and you don't have enough fuel for the next 15 minutes, you're kicking yourself. Because you're in a really tricky place. Like, are you gonna splash to get to the rain? And it looks like it's gonna be at least medium rain. So right now you're hoping that you have enough fuel to get to the rain, all the way to the rain, so you can go directly to wet and do the thing. There's gonna be like 20 minutes of rain, at least like 20 minutes of wet track. We don't know if it might just rain for a few minutes and then go back, but it's still gonna, because it's gonna go to medium rain, it's gonna be relatively wet track. So staying on slicks is probably gonna suck, like really badly. So at this moment you're calculating mentally your fuel state and whether you can make it, and if you can't make it, then you're gonna be like, am I gonna gamble it on the slicks, or am I gonna splash and do a second pit stop, which really sucks. But yeah, right now, like the only good call is the call you made before the race even started to have enough fuel.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. You said put in as much as you can to make sure that if the rain comes towards that 2/3 mark of the race, right, towards that 2/3, 3/4 point, you can think about what's the best pit stop rather than what's the one I have to make.
Yep. yeah, typically what you do for races like this is you put enough fuel in that you get to the point where it doesn't matter if you need to do the last 10 minutes on slicks in the wet or so, whatever is your like cutoff point. If you want to play safe, like it depends, because sometimes you need to roll the dice. Like if you're in a place where you need the win, you need the win to win the championship. You might just go for the risky strategy and like hope for no rain and hope you're gonna beat everybody with that extra pace. But then you might lose, and that's part of the fun of racing, is that you don't know what's gonna happen.
So we want to talk about risks really quickly. Matt Quant certainly just did. He's on his outlap right now, and obviously with the way conditions are standing, he's elected to stay on the dry slick compounds. Now what we don't really know is how much rain is going to be here. We know that the rain is coming, but it could be a brief, 2-3 minutes stint, or we could be seeing this all the way till the end. So Matt Quant with a very big roll of the dice here. Again, we don't have a crystal ball. We'll have a better idea here in the next 5-10 minutes of what is coming here as this rain gets closer and how rough and how long that will be. But this could really, really go Matt Quant's way, or it could really, really hurt his chances, because as you guys said, he'll have to come back to the pits.
Yeah, I don't know how many laps you can do here with slick tires in, mid-wet conditions, right? Where the track's somewhere between damp and wet, not quite to that flooded state. I mean, we know once it gets to wet and beyond wet, you've really got to start thinking about changing your tires. But, Ilpo, how long do you think you would personally risk driving in potentially damp to wet conditions?
As long as it takes. Like, you can keep doing it. As long as it stays only wet and doesn't go into flooded territory, you can keep doing it. It's gonna be very slow. If it goes to like a full wet track with puddles, you're gonna be extremely slow because you're gonna be aquaplaning all over the place. But you can do it. I could do it for the whole race if needed. I mean, I would never do that, but it's more of a question of at which point are you gonna lose more time by staying out. And I think typically, if it's fully wet here, I think you're gonna be losing like maybe 10 seconds per lap. If it goes to like really wet, you're gonna be losing like 20. So 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
On like full wet.
Sure.
But of course the problem is that it's not gonna immediately go to full wet. It's gonna take like a couple of before it gets properly wet.
Yeah, that's the thing. We have 19 cars now driving around on track, which means even when it does start raining, it'll take just that little extra time to go to, wet enough condition, and that may allow you to see to the end of the race.
So Matt,
and of course the secondary.
Yeah. No, go on up.
The secondary question is how many of these guys are running full dry setups? Because this is a very high speed track. So on low speed tracks, you generally run max wing, full downforce anyway, because you're not gonna go fast, so the drag doesn't really matter. But on a track like this, you generally run very low wing, low downforce setup. But in the wet, that's gonna be slower than a setup with more downforce. And we don't know what setups they're running. Like it might be that Zach Martin is on a setup with more downforce, and that's why he lost those positions, because he doesn't have the top speed. The Mustangs should be very good on a straight, but the AMGs just run away from him. So we don't know, and that's gonna be another interesting thing to see, is what happens to pace for the guys who do have the fuel to go all the way to rain.
So a couple more guys have rolled the dice here, hoping that the rain is good enough to stay on the dries until the end. Brian Slater and both Quants. Michael Landry continuing his charge right now to the front of the field. Has gotten all the way to the rear bumper of Zach Martin, has nowhere to put it right now. Really rough to get a move down through the Lenmos. You can certainly set up for an overtake here when you run into Ascari. There'll be a little bit of help as well from Brian Slater, who's on his outlap in front. Also in a very Canadian way, stays out of line and lets the two go by. There's another run underway here. Just behind, that's JBR and Dave Pacchignini.
So I was thinking about something before the race today. You know, I know that this season, Ilpo, you kind of said, I'm going to take, and I'm going to pass the big reins of stewarding off to Greg Kachadurian and let him kind of be the effective head honcho, and you've done a lot more of the administrative and keeping, you know, up with the league and keeping track of the season.
I'm gonna need this conversation to pause really quickly because Landry looking at a very, very good run on Zach Martin for the podium. Looks to the outside here into the chicane, the longest straight here at the corners, and Landry able to get the power down and power through Zach Martin to get himself onto the podium provisionally. With a 10-second gap, that might be able to stick. It's not probable, it's certainly not impossible, but as they run right now, Michael Landry is on the podium.
Beautiful.
I'm pretty sure Zach lifted there.
It did seem like there was a little bit of a towel thrown in because he knows about that penalty being given to Landry at the checkered here. But we shall see a couple more takers to pit lane. Jorge Blasini Rivera, Richie Wood, and battle starting to heat up right now. And do we keep seeing these two Hondas run into each other or not? Davin Sturdivant, Carter Hayne getting into it here. This is just inside the top 10. And Davin, very rarely do we see him with a penalty.
I don't know that Davin's really thinking about the penalty right now. I think he's more focused on the fact that, you know, the rain is coming. He's practiced a lot this week in the rain. And so he knows he's got a car that he can handle extremely well in the rain, and he's hoping that everybody else is going to handle quite as well.
A lot of information in the top right here. We're getting a lot of new insights because we're getting at least
the rain is coming now.
Here.
Yeah,
it's on the way, fast and hard.
It's going to shake things up. I mean, this is going to mix up the pecking order when it comes to the checkered flag for sure. And so the question I wanted to ask and kind of talk about very briefly, Ilpo, is when you and Greg are training stewards and you're talking about how to, you know, prepare them for situations like this, what types of, you know, can you talk a little bit about what types of folks that you're looking for and how you're evaluating them?
So I'm not sure we that much have a specific type of person. I mean, we are looking at people who can be objective, obviously, even with their friends, because we tend to know each other here. But really, we just take people, and we usually do it on like a big race or something, where we'll kind of shadow steward the race, and we look at the incidents, we explain the way we look at the incidents, where we first figure out if any rule was broken, and then how to figure out what's the correct penalty. And usually also with, like, it's very rare that basically it never happens that we would have any new stewards having to take a race on their own. It's always going to be one of the senior people around, just so that on the first races we go through everything together, and then once people get more used to it and feel confident about it, we can split the duties to make everything go faster, where we each pick an incident and look at those. And even then, if there's something complicated, we tend to push it back and like take a look together once all the other ones are done.
30 seconds stop, go.
That's beautiful insight.
Wood. And again, yes, we thank Elliot and Elpo for this great insight. But the rain is inevitable, as we talked about.
So that stop and go for Richie's got to be track limits. There's nothing else that can be.
Right.
Spinning into pits, but track limits you would
yeah. True. True, and Richie is pitted.
Technically, you can get a stop and go for track limits if you cut the entire first chicane straight up, but I think that's unlikely. I think he got the penalty right as he was coming out from the pits, so that's speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah. So Edriel Lugo Ortiz came to pit lane earlier than some might have expected. Guys, I'm not seeing any of that yellow Pirelli lettering on the outsides of these tires. And that makes me want to believe he's gone onto the slick or onto the wet compounds here before it started raining. I could be so wrong, Elpo.
No,
I believe that's what he's done.
I'm almost certain he's on the. I think that's not gonna work out for him. It's too long. Yeah, I don't think so. He's also running his normal TC settings. So if you absolutely have to drive the wet tires on dry track, you have to put up the TC and the ABS like all the way to not kill the tires.
Zach Martin coming out of the pit lane as well. Hard to tell. Maybe he's gone over to the slicks as well. I believe so.
On the wets. Zach is on the wets.
On the wets? Yes, he is.
Yeah, it feels a little early. I mean, you still got 3 or 4 laps before you're going to even have to deal with wet conditions. I think you're right on this one, Ilpo. I think a couple of these guys jumped the gun a little bit.
I think it's just about barely going to work for Zach. I don't think for Adriel, because he's been already out for like 2 laps, I think. So, but we'll see, because it's obviously more complicated. Like the car setup and everything plays into it, but.
Less than 5 minutes until we expect to have rainfall here at Monza. It's Argent in the lead right now. Michael Landry with a hefty 10-second podium. Stands in second for now, but will be expected to drop further back. And Zach Martin right now on the hunt to get that position back from Adriel Lugo Ortiz that was taken on at the start of this race. Side by side into Ascari. Has to do the long way around to get it done, but makes it a done deal into Ascari. And just like that, here comes the rain here in Monza.
And is it raining? Oh my.
It has started pouring here on the track. And Grayson Head and Dave Paccagnini have timed this to an absolute T. Both of them hit their boxes pretty much the minute it started raining. Josh Popov and Ty Sweat reacting sooner. That's Casey Bull in that white Turner car, excuse me.
It has been raining for 30 seconds. Track is already greasy. How fast do we think this is transitioning to wet, Ilpo?
I would say like 2 laps maybe, because it's still only light rain, like a drizzle, so it's gonna take a little bit. I think if you want me to say who's timed this perfectly, that's Arjun. He's still out. He's gonna do at least this 1 lap on slicks, where the slicks are still clearly better, and he's gonna, he's already in the lead. That's gonna be so perfect.
So again, for those of you at home, the minute it starts raining, that it doesn't exactly have people instantly scrambling for the wet compounds. You have that crossover point where when it comes to pace, there might be wetness on the track, but that dry compound is still actually going to be doing a lot more work. You don't need to have those grooved wet tires channeling all of that water out for you just yet. And when we're at the greasy point, you can see that track condition right next to the temperature there in the top right of your screen. We're not quite at that crossover point right now. So Arjun's going to be watching that. And more importantly, he's going to be feeling what the car wants right now to see that breakthrough. Further back, Michael Quant still on the charge. Big move to the inside of Adriel Lugo Ortiz. Gets it done through Ascari. Second time ELO has dropped a position through the Ascari chicane. The risks definitely outweigh the reward right now for Adriel Lugo Ortiz, and he has dropped it back big time.
Yeah, and I've just seen...
Further back, excuse me, Matt Quant is under attack right now from another Mustang. Double Mustang attack on the Quants. Grayson Head around the outside into Parabolica. Onto the Acres, gets it done.
Yeah, that was... I got to think Quant lifted because... I don't know, that seemed really quick. And I have another confirmed 15-second penalty this time for car 22, Richie Wood, and this was for a collision with 409 of Jesse Beauclair.
Ooh, Adriel Lugo Ortiz lost it on the brakes there in the chicane as Zach Martin and Michael Quant have a Mustang battle here for what is provisionally third. You consider all of the other pit stops in progress right now and tack on that penalty for Michael Landry. This could potentially be, if not for the win, for that outright final spot in the podium right now. Lap traffic ahead, that's Richie Wood and Matt Quant. We're starting to see potentially the trade-off here and the advantage go over to that wet weather tire as the track is now damp. You can see that on the top right of your screen. So the handoff is definitely in progress right now. But we're seeing, yep, in 15 minutes, I knew you were going to mention this, Elliot. It's going to dry up in about 15 minutes. So more commitment issues for Arjun here. But he comes into the pit lane and he'll be switching over to those wet weather tires for the time being. Quant continuing to hold off Zach Martin right now. Runs a lot of curb here through Ascari, and that might give Martin a chance. Drifts into him, they bang doors! Quant sails off to the side and gives that position to Zach Martin. But Martin loses a lot of momentum. This will give Lugo Ortiz a chance into Parabolica. Looks to the outside in that Mercedes. Side by side into the penultimate corner.
Yeah, Martin really lost out big with that that incident with Quant.
Elpo, I don't know if you saw it, but what do you think? Racing incident or potentially get him in the box?
I unfortunately didn't see that
see
one.
It? All good.
But I will say I think Edriel doesn't have the tires. That being out a couple more laps in the dry on the wets has just completely ruined those tires, and he's now in trouble with the cars behind.
Jorge Blasini Rivera back into the pits. I want to say he's on the wet compound. I don't know if he got fuel in that BMW or not. So we'll see what the move is there. Track is now fully wet right now. And Arjun,
yeah, I think this is wets to the end of the race. This is... The track's not going to dry at the 15-minute mark. We might start seeing, you know, at the 5-minute mark from the end, a little bit of cloudy and no more rain, but it's going to still be wet enough that you just run wets to the end at this point.
Jorge was on slicks when he pitted. He pitted about 10 minutes ago the first time, so he probably just took fuel only at that time.
Oh my goodness, so did the reverse of the strat Lugo Ortiz went to, which was basically hoping that the rain wasn't going to be bad enough, and unfortunately has gone the wrong way for him. So we will see how he can recover. He rejoins the field in 11th right now, just in front of Josh Popov. And man, what a day this young man, Matt Quant, has had. Charged his way back forward on the rain after an early incident, rolling off in second. Now the script flips again, and he's under attack from Dave Pacagnini in that Nissan GTR. Quant gives him the outside line. He's gonna make him work for it. So slick on the outside.
Quant really looks to be struggling here.
You can see a big.
I'm seeing a lot of shake from his car.
I believe Matt is on slicks.
I think so too. Yes, if I remember, he did. He also did the JBR strat of coming in too early and hoping that the dries were going to be good enough. So, Oppo, at this point in the race, do you pull the chute and just give it up and go over to dries, or do you just, or wets, or do you just ride it out at this point?
It's not a long period of rain. Like, both options are terrible. I don't even know which one is less terrible. Both options are awful.
Quant putting up better of a fight than we thought initially here. He actually outbrakes, is going to miss this apex here through the second chicane, and gives that position up to Dave Pacagnini, who has been hungry for a top 5 result here. Tried the Aston
I think
Martin
Quant
at the start
really
of the season. Had a little bit of drama at Nürburgring after a really solid qualifying, got into his teammate Josh Popov, but with a really good opportunity to work forward in the GTR.
Yeah, I think Quant really made a strategy error with that tire choice. He should have pitted earlier as the wet conditions started evolving, and that's really costing him now. I mean, he was up in the running for third, now he's down in 8th and not looking particularly good as he continues to progress around the track.
Just in front of him is the two Mustangs, Michael Kwan, excuse me, keep doing this, and Grayson Head, as those two did a synchronized drift out of Ascari. I need to remember the tire allocation between these two. But I believe both of these guys are on the wets, if I remember.
I think both ones are on slicks, and I think both of them had the same problem. They didn't have enough fuel to get all the way in the rain.
Right.
So they decided that staying on slicks and trying to power through the last part of the rain is the call. I'm not sure. Because the refueling time is fixed, it's kind of a tricky call. All of the options are really bad.
And so far I'm seeing, Sturdivant and Slater are back where they started despite having a handful of position exchanges earlier on. So that 10-second penalty plus that dump at the start has brought Davin right back up to the same position he started the race in. So far the biggest movers have been Carter Hayne and Brian Crane. Boy, that's a tongue twister. Carter Hayne, Brian Crane, who are tied for 12 positions. They've brought themselves up the grid, starting in 21st and 22nd, respectively.
Battle of the race keeps on going here as ELO tries to close in on Zach Martin. One quant down. We'll try another for Dave Paccagnini. This is on the run out of Lenmo too. A little bit of that left-hand kink here, then onto the bridge. And this will be a done deal before the brakes. So yeah, talking about just how much you can suffer here on slicks in the wet. Both of the quants are feeling it right now. But we could still very much see them running in the top 10. 9 seconds right now between Matt and Carter Hayne. So those two could do a little bit of work together potentially to hold those positions. Ten minutes to go. Arjun Lakshmi Narasimhan with a healthy 10-second lead ahead of Michael Landry, who, by the way, might be able to outlast this penalty. So that penalty has been lifted. I don't know if that was initially assigned to the stop and go or if that was Fields' info. But that's not on my screen.
Which penalty for who?
For Michael Landry.
He had a 10-second he served.
Yes, so any time penalty is given before you do your mandatory pit stop will be served at the pit stop.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So 10-second
So
penalty served.
I would say all things considered, Landry is doing really well.
Yeah, extremely well.
The guy had, what, a 10-second penalty and is now kind of in no man's land in second? Absolutely.
Yeah. If we want to talk about the driving skill and the fact that he has absolutely, he started fourth, he's up in second now, despite having that 10-second penalty for that spin in, I think it was turn one. He is driving incredibly well. I mean, he's put in a banger of a race so far, and he's just kind of, he's doing his best to keep his car moving fast. And when it comes down to the championship, that's going to really help him, because at the moment, while the drop rounds haven't been processed on my list yet, and while the quali laps haven't been processed, Arjun and Landry are separated by quite a few points. So it's going to be important for Landry to keep this finish as tight as he can to keep Arjun at bay.
Absolutely, and for the others, I mean, it really is at this point in the championship going to come down to Landry and to Charles. I mean, Palmieri had the opening round win. Casey Jackman had a couple of solid results, but neither of them have been consistent enough to stay in the conversation. Zach Martin might be able to if he can keep running consistently in third here. He's got Edrell Lugo Ortiz all over his ears here with 9.5 minutes remaining. Lugo Ortiz took that position earlier on in the race in the dry on pace alone. Kind of pounced on the opportunity given him by Arjun when he took the lead away. But he's been given another chance now, except instead of the lead, it's for this bottom step of the podium, Elliot.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, we talk about the folks we expect to be at the top of the championship, but right now I'm seeing Carter Hayne in second place just on pure points alone.
not counting the drop round, obviously, unless that is somehow counting the drop round.
No, not my results. My results are just pure points. So until we count the drop rounds and do the official tallying, right now it's just kind of almost rumor, but I'm seeing Carter Hayne putting a run in for the championship.
Don't think he's had a race outside of the top 10. And you've got to also take into factor how they did in qualifying, because there are points rewarded for that to give an incentive for the guys in the series to stick around, as Zelpo has told us. But again,
But he has also qualified consistently. I mean, consistency is key in this championship.
Don't think he's had a single race. Yeah, go on, Elpo.
Just to make that even more exciting, Carter Hayne is certainly gonna catch one of the ones, maybe even both of them. He's lapping like 3 or 4 seconds faster per lap, and the gaps are 2 seconds and 6 seconds. So.
Yep, last time we checked in, that was about 5 seconds. That's now just 1.5. So we'll keep you updated as that closes in. But no, Carter Hayne, I think... Again, the thing Davin would say if he's in here is wins are flashy and wins are nice. Consistent podiums, top 10s, top 5s win you championships, and making those moves for the win and paying the price is what loses you those championships.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm looking at Carter's results this season right now. You know, his qualifying, so his first qualifying wasn't stellar at Olton. His second qualifying was... not terrible at Bathurst. He was 15 and 11 respectively. This week he was 6th, but his race finishes have been strong. He's been 9th, 5th, and 5th from the start of the season. So that consistency of always finishing mid-pack, that's going to do him a lot of good when it comes championship point tallying.
Half a second now to 8th place with just under 7 seconds remaining, or 7 minutes remaining, excuse me. But continues to charge forward. The Laverne, Tennessee native. Has absolutely worked his way up. Started with us in the rookies, then moved on as an AM driver in the Tuesday splits. Has won the championship in the AM category. And we can't quite say right now what his odds are of winning outright, but this move to the outside of Quant is certainly going to help him in his first ever pro championship battle. A little bit too deep there, Quant on the...
Oh, and Quant spins and loses it in Ascari, and he's going to lose that position out to Carter as Carter just walks right by him. And that's where that practice in the rain absolutely is.
It's actually a little bit unfortunate for Carter. He was so careful to make sure he doesn't get hit by the spinning car that he lost almost 2 seconds to the car in front. But he still has the pace. There are, I believe, 4 laps to go.
About
thereabouts,
4 laps
yeah.
to go. Yep. So the question is, it's about 5 seconds between Quant and Carter. Between Michael and Carter, shall we say, for clarification.
Yeah, the other Quant.
We're just starting to see the rain start to disperse here. Are we going to get to a point before the checkered flag where potentially the advantage could shift back over to the dry tire? We've got 18 cars on track right now. That's going to clean this track out and dry it fairly quick. Is it going to be fast enough to maybe give Michael Quant this advantage again? This definitely doesn't help.
I mean,
though.
Carter just took 3 seconds out of him. I mean, like Ilpo said, he's putting 3 seconds a lap in faster. I just watched his delta go from 5 seconds to 2.7. This is going to be tough for Michael to defend against.
Well, it's also, with these conditions, it's going to take, like, I would say, probably like 10 minutes for the track to start properly drying out. There's not that much time in the race, so...
No, he's already so close he can start seeing Michael's bumper. So
right.
I think I don't want to jinx it. Knock on wood. I'm doing everything I can to not jinx it, but I think Carter Hayne has just secured himself a 7th place finish. As Michael goes way wide, that's going to slow him down. Carter keeps a clean line through Ascari. I mean, it's those little mistakes that just add up over time. Like Ilpo said, if you get a poor exit out of the corner, your straight line speed, you're going to lose a lot of time to the car behind you and ahead of you.
So 3 battles going on here. As a little bit of drama there from Arjun. Yellow triggered for me. I think he maybe took a little bit too much curve there. But 3 battles going on right now. Zach Martin battling Adriel Lugo Ortiz for that bottom step of the podium. Carter Hayne closing in on Matt Quant. And just outside, or just behind them, excuse me, Josh Popov trying to close Brian Crane and get that top 10 spot, which will be an absolute brilliant push forward drive for Crane, as we talked about earlier. Started 22nd and was looking to turn that into a top 10 finish. Carter Hayne all the way now to the bumper of Matt Quant. Gets a better exit, goes the long way around here, and is able to get the power down in that teal and yellow NSX. Still side by side. Quant putting up a pretty solid fight here, but we should have a done deal before the anchors down into the second chicane.
I mean, Carter took the wetter line. That's you gotta give him a little credit there. He did take the line that was much wetter on track. But I mean, this is going to be a sealed deal. He's got so much more pace over Michael at this point.
And it's not just more pace, but the way he can get better exits because he has the traction is so crucial. He's just being very careful, which obviously makes sense because he's already in a very good position. And this should be.
Yeah, why risk it, right?
Yeah.
Once again, pushes Carter Hayne to the long way around here, going into Ascari side by side. How much curve can you run? How brave can you be on the brakes? Maybe a little bit too brave.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
For Matt
there
Clark.
it is, Michael. Was it Matt? Oh my gosh, am I getting this wrong?
It was. Or no, no, it wasn't.
It was Michael. It was Michael. I got you on this one, Jackson. We can set the record straight. I mean, yeah, like Ilpo said, he could be so much more precise and get such a clean line through where, you know, when you're on the dry tires in these conditions, you got to brake a lot earlier. And if you don't, because you're afraid of the car behind you, I mean, in Ascari, both times he just picked off the Quant brothers.
Further back, Josh Popov on the inside of Jesse Beclaire, trying to close that gap to Brian Crane. And he's not making it easy there in the teal Porsche. Gets that Porsche fully clear. And a battle for the top 10 and a battle for the podium right now. Brian Crane and Josh Popov here. Zach Martin and Adriel Lugo Ortiz further ahead with 60 seconds on the clock.
I mean, Popov really got a little bit of a raw deal out of that. Jesse's a lapped car at this point, so, you know, he really should have been able to get around him a little quicker. I got to give, you know, Popov, I think he didn't have the guts, really, I think, to push the car the way he should have.
Still a little bit of wash you can see coming back from Crane onto Popov's windscreen. I think that was the big thing we were talking about at Nürburgring, Elliot.
Oh, yeah.
Just how much the wash from these cars can affect you. But it's not hurting Popov
and
at all.
Popov on
inside
Crane.
Into the Lenmos, almost banging doors here.
Oh, a little bit of a touch, but nothing outrageous, I don't think. I think that's just a racing incident, if I'm being honest.
And just like that, Brian Crane still deserves all the flowers given here. Ilpo, what's your take on it?
Crane got on the wet curb on the exit. It's gonna be wheel spin, PC, no speed, and that's all it takes. It's such a small mistake, but that's all it takes when it's wet to lose a position.
So with
and that brings Popov up in the top 10.
Popov up into the top 10. Lugo Ortiz looking to get into the top 3 with the pass on Zach Martin. It's going to take a Hail Mary at this point to get it done. Not quite enough. Still within drafting distance, but needs a mistake from Martin and a good exit in front. But right now it is all eyes on this man right here, Arjun Lakshmi Narasimhan. India-born, America-raised, Colorado-taught, Phoenix native right now. His first race back, his first season back on a wheel after a long time on an Xbox controller. This kid is so fun to drive and just perform sometimes when you least expect it. The number 7 teal and pink Mercedes, the jumpy whale, absolutely swam to the front today. He'll win at Monza.
He put in an absolutely incredible drive today. I mean, I'm not going to be the guy to say it, but I think he made up a little bit for his incident last week at Nürburgring. I think he's shown that, and I say I'm not going to be, I should have said I don't want to be, but I'm going to have to be. I think he's put in, he put the laps in here, he put the practice in here, and he showed us that when it comes to it, he really can drive a clean race. And so all of the, all the fun we made of him was in jest. But congratulations, Arjun. He did a phenomenal job driving out here in these conditions today. You can see them celebrating. It's fantastic. Arjun Landry and Zach Martin all.
Luke Ortiz joining in as well.
They are having a ball. I mean, these guys did a great job. They really do deserve the opportunity to celebrate.
He's shown pace all season long, but he's famined at Nürburgring. Arjun Lakshmi Narasimhan finally feasts here in season 23. We'll get him in the rest of your podium in just a couple of seconds. Stay with us. Joined now by your podium for week 5 at Monza. Let's start with your third place finisher, Zach Martin, who stood on the pole. I know obviously not the first handful of corners you wanted there, but were able to still hold on to the front, able to hold on to a podium finish. Talk to me about your race.
I made some changes right before the race, and I probably shouldn't have done that, but I mean, it was fine overall. I just couldn't get the car to stop. Like halfway through the race, I figured out why, but it was kind of too late by then, so.
You lost that position to Adriel Lugo Ortiz in the dry. You were able to get him on strategy and battle him back and then fend him off at the end there. All good?
Yeah. Yep, I feel like I was like, one more lap of fuel would have been much better, but it's too late, so.
Yeah.
But it was good overall. I mean, for Monza, I can't really complain. I mean, I thought I was for sure done when one of the Quant brothers, like I swear, he like turned as if I wasn't there, so. I was surprised that I made it through T1. I was expecting it to be over there, so.
Zach, really, really great drive this week. We'll see you next time.
Oh, thank you.
Joined now by Expect Anybody Else. Michael Landry in second. Had a little bit of a penalty there, but handled it. I mean, Michael, even with all of the factors considered, 10-second penalty and still working your way into a second spot. I know you're maybe looking at the difference between a win and a loss there, but that's still got to feel good, right?
Yeah, I still feel good after all the mistake, but when you see at the end only 7 seconds to Arjun with a 10-second penalty, I could have fight in on the last 10 for the win. But even with the penalty, I did a bunch of mistake in this career, like 2 times that I jumped the car way too much and almost lost control, lost a bunch of time there. So Arjun did a good job. Still did the race without anything. Did a good race, so he avoided everything. So good for him.
Thank you.
I mean, you drove incredibly well, Michael, as well. You put in a whole boatload of consistency, even though you say you whiffed it in Ascari a couple times. I mean, you still, given the start, given everything that happened, I mean, you did incredible. So I want to commend you for the drive, for the recovery, for the fact that you didn't give up at all, despite maybe thinking that, oh man, this 10 seconds is really going to suck.
Yeah, thank you. I was thinking about it, but I have to keep going. We never know what happened with those races with the changing condition. So I have the perfect amount of fuel to change for the wet tires, so that helped too.
Right. Last question here, and then we'll cut you loose. But it's kind of becoming a 2-car race here for the championship. You and Charles. Obviously, Charles had some big drama earlier on. I don't know if you saw, but he failed to see the finish. I know you had your own little bit of drama at Bathurst, but both you guys kind of have a solid set of drops here. How do you feel your odds are for the championship here with 2 more to go?
No, I didn't race at Olton, so that will be my drop for sure. Mm-hmm. And then Bathurst was a P7, so it'll depend on Mikael what he will do for the last race. So I just have to do the best I could, and we'll see what he does. If he do good, I think he will get it, but we'll never know.
I mean, Mikael also finished 23rd at Olton, so I don't know that you can discount either of you at this point.
I didn't know that. I thought it was higher than that, so yeah, I didn't even take a look at the point.
I'm sorry, I'm reading practice. I lied. He finished second. I'm sorry, Michael.
Yeah. Getting us amped. It's going to be exciting regardless. Michael, really good drive this week. We'll see you next time at Kyalami.
All right, thank you.
I love talking to this guy because somehow, some way, he finds his way into the front, and he does it in the most fun, unexpected way possible. Arjun Lakshmi Narasimhan. Arjun, I'll say this. Was us talking tonight something you expected to happen?
Honestly, no. But after qualifying, I was like, maybe I could actually do decently this race. But I wasn't expecting a win, in all honesty. I mean, then again, the miracle that did happen was Michael getting in an unfortunate accident, which, let's be honest, if that didn't happen, I probably wouldn't have won this. But yeah.
I'm still giving you every means of flowers because you not only got that gap, you executed strategy to a T, and you managed to keep that gap healthy between you and Landry first and second. I'll ask you this, because we saw a lot of guys kind of gamble on strategy. Adriel Lugo Ortiz was one of them to make the early switch from the slicks over to the wets. What was the approach for strategy for you today?
I knew nothing was confirmed until the last 15 minutes of the race, so I just overfueled the car for like the 50 minutes. I actually started with 100 liters of fuel.
Really? And
decided to go all the way to like the last 15 minutes before deciding on what I want to do. And it worked out.
I mean, that was one of the first things Ilpo said was that, you really want to overfuel the car in the beginning because it's anybody's ball game. And I mean, you executed that perfectly. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, whatever flowers Jackson sends you, I hope you put them in a box and send them to Davin after last week. But it was great to see the amount of work you put in this week. And I mean, I'm very happy to see the racing that you did. You did phenomenal. I was extremely excited the whole time to see the level of professional etiquette that you put in, because I don't want anybody to think that last week race is the be all end all of Arjun, and that's just the way that he is. You, Jackson, myself, we all know that you're not necessarily a constant menace, so it's great
No.
to see you do a fantastic job.
Thank you. I hope this redemption was necessary.
It was a fun redemption arc. We'll say that. Let me throw this at you, because we're going to a steaming Kailami next year. That's got its own kind of insanity to it when it comes to tire management and strategy. How do we feel about that, and maybe going back to back?
I'm not a fan of hot races, but I'll work something out, I guess. Everyone's tire is going to be dying anyways. It's just a matter of how much your tire dies. So I just gotta prepare for that.
Who dies the least? Gentlemen, all three of you are good to go. Thank you so much for giving us a fantastic show today, and we will see you next week at Kailami. That's going to do it for us. Elliot, any closing thoughts here before we send our 31 consistent viewers on their way?
I think we talked about it a little bit earlier pre-race. We're going to hopefully get some semi-official results as the championship standings when we start Kailami, so it'll be great to see where everybody's at and, what the last two races, last race, first race technically, hold for the rest of the season.
That will be updated as the week goes on. You can stay tuned to our Discord for hopeful championship standing updates. And until then, we're off to Kailami for a hot and humid race in South Africa, then on to the dramatic finale that has been postponed. Goldilocks conditions at Spa, a pair of very, very intense races coming your way as we crown our season 23 champion. But until then, for Elliot Brown, Ilpo Rustalainen, I'm Jackson Lang.